What if I told you that everything you believed is a lie? The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about lies amid the dense forests and vast plains in the very heart of North America. We have come to believe that before the arrival of European ships, only a few nomadic tribes of hunters lived in these vast territories. History textbooks most often paint a picture of an utterly wild and completely undeveloped ancient continent. However, modern archaeological excavations completely shatter this long-held myth about the primitive past of the local Native Americans. Beneath a centuries-old layer of fertile soil lie the magnificent traces of a highly developed and incredibly powerful civilization. Building such a vast and complex settlement required incredible physical effort and strict organization of labor across the entire society. These hardworking people had absolutely no draft animals, durable metal tools, or wheeled carts. Every ton of construction soil was carefully carried by hand in small woven baskets over the course of many decades. Their deep knowledge of astronomy allowed them to orient the main squares with perfect geometric precision according to the cardinal directions. Watch the video to the end, and you'll learn how the ancient builders erected this monumental architectural masterpiece using only clay, wood, and stone. Are you ready to learn the truth about the most ambitious engineering project of the ancient continent? The craftsmen of the past chose a spacious valley for their settlement, located at the confluence of several full-flowing rivers. The wide waterways provided access to fresh water and served as transport routes for moving heavy construction materials on large wooden rafts. Regular spring floods brought vast amounts of nutrient-rich river silt, transforming the soil into an ideal foundation for large-scale cultivation of useful plants. Engineers meticulously laid out the future city blocks using precise geometric calculations and years of observations of the sun's movement. They erected massive wooden posts on the plain, creating a strict grid for the placement of thousands of spacious residential buildings. Tons of heavy, wet soil were moved by hand every day in large woven baskets, forming perfectly level sites to begin construction. Each new building was deliberately erected on a special artificial platform, protecting the lower wooden floors from destructive moisture during prolonged rains. Builders used dense local clay to create reliable foundations and further reinforce the load-bearing walls of residential structures. Dense stands of tall cedars and oaks provided an unlimited supply of high-quality timber for erecting sturdy internal frames. Workers felled thick trunks using heavy stone axes and carefully stripped them of excess branches and bark. The stripped logs were driven deep into the ground, forming a solid foundation capable of withstanding strong gusts of wind on the open plain. The area inside the walls was divided into specialized sectors designated for housing, storing supplies, and the daily work of artisans. Spacious storage facilities were built on the highest points of the terrain, ensuring that the stockpiled supplies remained completely protected from ground moisture. Streets were laid out strictly at right angles, forming a clear grid of spacious blocks, extremely convenient for the movement of large groups of townspeople. The surface of the main roads was covered with a thick layer of fine crushed stone and compacted sand, preventing the formation of impassable mud. Each individual family was allocated a predetermined plot of land for the construction of their own residential house and the establishment of a small farmyard. The standardized plot sizes helped maintain strict spatial order and visual architectural harmony throughout the vast settlement. As the population grew, architects expanded the city's boundaries, adding new rings of residential neighborhoods far beyond the main wall. New districts were designed with the existing road network in mind, ensuring unimpeded access to the old central square. Additional warehouses and workshops were built on the outskirts, significantly reducing the logistical burden on the infrastructure of the oldest central district. Strict adherence to a unified master plan allowed the metropolis to grow organically, avoiding chaotic development and transportation problems. The city gradually took on its final monumental form, becoming the largest and most thoughtfully planned settlement in North America. The efforts of thousands of coordinated workers culminated in the creation of a functional and secure space ready for further rapid infrastructure development. Monumental earthworks and smooth streets testified to the highest level of engineering ingenuity and the capacity for the most complex social organization. I'd love to hear your perspective. What do you think of such mastery of urban planning? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. Guess how long it took to create this architectural marvel out of simple earth and clay? Right in the heart of the metropolis, engineers began constructing a gigantic earthen mound, which was to serve as the foundation for the main administrative residence. The base perimeter of this structure covered an area of several hectares, requiring the movement of millions of cubic meters of construction material. Workers lined up in long, unbroken chains, passing heavy baskets filled with various types of local soil to one another. The secret to the strength of these colossal platforms lay in a complex alternation of layers of sand, clay, and gravel. Engineers knew that homogeneous soil would quickly settle or spread under the influence of heavy rains, so they combined materials of varying densities. First, a thick layer of sand was laid to ensure internal drainage, followed by a layer of compacted clay, creating a waterproof barrier. This multi-layered structure allowed for the even distribution of the colossal weight of the mound itself, and the buildings planned to be constructed on its flat summit. To prevent rainwater from pooling on the flat tops of the terraces, the architects designed a system of internal drainage channels. They created slight slopes on the surface to direct water flows towards special gutters lined with smooth river stones. These gutters carried the water down the slopes of the mound, discharging it into the city's drainage system. Thanks to this engineering solution, even during the heaviest downpours, the surface of the platform remained dry and firm. The construction process continued uninterrupted for many decades, passing from one generation of engineers to the next. As needed, the old wooden structures at the summit were demolished, and a new layer of soil was piled on top of them, increasing the monument's overall height. Thus, the mound constantly grew upward and outward, visually dominating all the surrounding buildings of the metropolis. Each new phase of expansion required highly complex calculations to maintain the correct geometric proportions of the entire gigantic complex. The extraction and transportation of the correct type of clay became a separate, large-scale sector of the city's economy. Huge quarries were dug outside the city walls, where hundreds of people extracted the highest quality, most malleable building material every day. The extracted clay was loaded onto wooden sleds and transported to the base of the mound under construction along specially laid wide roads. Constant quality control of the material ensured the durability and structural integrity of the step platforms being erected. The finished earthen platforms were covered with a final layer of dark, fertile soil onto which short, tough grass was sown. This vegetation served as a natural protective covering whose root system permanently bound the upper layers of soil together. Workers regularly trimmed this grass with stone sickles, maintaining the neat appearance of the slopes and preventing deep cracks from forming due to drying out. Such meticulous care required the daily efforts of hundreds of specialized caretakers throughout the year. The scale of this earthwork surpassed all known projects on the continent, demonstrating a colossal degree of centralization of power. The construction of such monuments required precise coordination among thousands of workers, engineers, material suppliers, and accountants. The completed platform served not only as the physical foundation for the buildings, but also as a visible symbol of the engineering might of the entire metropolis. What other engineering secrets do you think lie hidden within the inner layers of these gigantic earthen platforms? In the next chapter, you will learn exactly how ancient agronomists provided food for the tens of thousands of inhabitants of this colossal metropolis. The secret passed down from generation to generation lies in a unique system of comprehensive soil cultivation and plant growth. Perfectly cleared farmlands stretch for many kilometers around the city, divided into neat rectangular plots. The metropolis's agronomists employed a method of intercropping multiple crops in a single bed, which allowed for the most efficient use of every square meter of land. This thoughtful approach significantly increased overall crop yields and protected the crops from soil nutrient depletion. To cultivate the vast expanses, farmers used standardized tools made of durable stone and treated wood. Heavy hoes with stone tips easily broke through the hard crust of the soil, preparing the fields for the new planting season. Long, pointed wooden sticks were used to create even, deep holes for seeds at precisely measured intervals. After each season, these tools were thoroughly cleaned and stored in special dry rooms to prevent damage. The harvested autumn crop required immediate processing and proper long-term storage within the city limits. Corn cobs were laid out on wooden racks under special canopies, where they were dried by the wind until all moisture had evaporated. The dried grains were poured into huge clay jars, which were hermetically sealed with a mixture of wax and dense clay. These supplies were stored in granaries raised above the ground, which reliably protected the food from dampness during the cold winter months. Farmers strictly followed a planting calendar, guided by astronomical observations and changes in river water temperature. At the first signs of spring warming, teams of workers went out into the fields to repair drainage channels and remove dry stalks. During dry periods, manual irrigation was organized. Hundreds of people carried water from the river in large leather water bags. This coordinated effort required iron discipline and a clear division of responsibilities among all participants in the agricultural process. Agronomists also practiced a system of crop rotation, leaving some plots fallow to restore their natural fertility. Special types of wild grasses were sown on these resting lands, which were then dug up and mixed with the soil as green manure. This method prevented the complete depletion of arable land and guaranteed consistently high yields for many decades. Such a long-term approach to resource planning allowed the metropolis to steadily increase its population. The success of this highly complex agricultural system depended entirely on the incredible diligence and endurance of ordinary farmers. They worked from dawn to dusk, transforming the wild prairie into a highly efficient factory for producing high-quality food. It was their daily routine labor that allowed architects and engineers to focus on building monumental pyramids and laying out streets. If you're impressed by the ingenuity of these ancient agronomists and their methods of working the land, be sure to like this video. What was found in old archives completely changes our understanding of the scale of ancient trade in building materials across the continent. The metropolis's advantageous geographical location at the confluence of major rivers turned it into the main logistics hub for the entire region. Local engineers designed and built spacious river ports equipped with long wooden piers for mooring heavy vessels. These ports received dozens of massive cargo canoes daily, hollowed out from the solid trunks of giant trees. A continuous stream of unique resources, unavailable in the immediate vicinity of the city walls, flowed into the city. From the far north came shipments of pure native copper, highly prized for its malleability and durability. Southern expeditions delivered huge shipments of seashells, used for the production of standardized trade goods and tools. Large blocks of rare flint and quartz, necessary for crafting the most durable stone axes, were brought in from the mountainous regions. A massive trading square operated in the very center of the city, where all incoming valuable cargo was distributed. Specially trained record keepers tracked the quantities of copper, stone, and shells brought in, using a complex system of notches on wooden tablets. The raw materials brought in were exchanged for finished, standardized goods, woven cloth, corn reserves, and high-quality locally produced ceramics. This centralized process allowed city officials to strictly control all resource flows and direct them toward construction needs. To protect valuable cargo en route, special escort groups were formed, well-versed in the intricacies of river navigation. They planned routes taking weather conditions into account, avoiding dangerous rapids and sections with strong countercurrents. Small wooden forts were erected along the main waterways, serving as reliable landmarks and shelters in case of bad weather. This well-thought-out security system ensured that the valuable cargo reached the city's ports in perfect condition. Huge volumes of imported stone were immediately distributed among the city's workshops for processing and use in construction. Flint was split into sharp plates, which were inserted into the wooden handles of hoes for working on hard soil. Imported copper was hammered flat with stone hammers into thin sheets used to clad the front doors of administrative buildings. Did you know about the existence of such incredibly extensive trade networks in ancient times? In the next chapter, you will learn the details of how craft workshops functioned and how unique tools were produced. The city's artisan quarters were strictly organized zones where thousands of craftsmen worked daily to create standardized products. Each street in these districts specialized in a specific type of activity, ensuring maximum efficiency in the production process. Workstations were situated under long, open reed canopies that shielded the craftsmen from the scorching sun and sudden rains. The steady rhythm of stone hammers and the monotonous sound of grinding could be heard in these quarters from dawn to dusk. Flint workers used a complex technique to split large boulders into perfectly flat and sharp plates. First, they delivered precise strikes with a heavy round stone to chip off a base blank of the desired size and thickness. Then, using the sharp tips of their horns, they carefully chipped away the tiniest flakes along the edges of the slab, forming a smooth blade. This process required immense patience and a steady hand, as the slightest mistake could irreparably ruin the expensive material. Complex geometric shapes were cut from the finished copper sheets and used as architectural ornaments and status symbols. The edges of the pieces were carefully polished with fine sand and water until a perfectly smooth and shiny surface was achieved. Some craftsmen specialized in embossing relief patterns onto copper using hard-bone tools and wooden dies. These gleaming objects were highly valued in society and often served as currency in exchange for large shipments of food. Ceramic production was streamlined and provided the city with all the necessary containers for storing supplies. The clay was first cleaned of small stones and mixed with crushed shells, which prevented the vessels from cracking during drying. Potters shaped enormous jugs by building up the walls from long clay strands, which were then carefully smoothed with wooden spatulas. The finished pieces were coated with a thin layer of liquid-colored clay and polished with smooth stones until they developed a characteristic glossy sheen. The ceramics were fired in special deep trenches that served as primitive but highly effective earthen kilns. The vessels were carefully placed on a layer of dry wood and tightly covered with earth to ensure even heating and slow cooling. Temperature control was achieved by regulating airflow through small ventilation holes cut into the earthen dome. As a result of this process, the clay acquired the hardness of stone, and the finished jugs could serve for decades to store water and grain. Separate workshops specialized in processing large seashells brought to the metropolis from southern coastal regions. Using fine flint drills, precise holes of a strictly specified diameter were drilled into the thick shells. The surface of the shells was polished with sandstone until perfectly smooth, after which intricate engravings featuring geometric motifs were applied to them. These standardized items were mass-produced to meet the city's internal needs and for shipment to distant settlements. High specialization of labor allowed craftsmen to hone their skills to absolute perfection in a single narrow field. Apprentices spent years observing their mentors at work, absorbing the subtlest nuances of working with stone, metal, or malleable clay. This system of knowledge transfer ensured that the quality standards of manufactured goods remained consistent across many generations. The products of these workshops became the technological foundation that enabled the rapid development and dominance of the entire colossal metropolis. Here is what happens behind the closed doors of the spacious residences of the leaders of this vast ancient metropolis. The complex system of city governance was based on a strict vertical hierarchy where each level performed clearly defined functions. At the top of the pyramid was a group of high-ranking administrators who made strategic decisions regarding the allocation of resources and the launch of large-scale construction projects. Their residences were situated on the highest earthen platforms, which physically underscored their dominant position within the social structure. The administrator's key task was to accurately plan the volume of agricultural work for the coming season. Special accountants collected data on the amount of grain in storage and calculated the growing population's corn requirements. Based on these calculations, plans were drawn up for clearing new planting areas and assigning work crews to the fields. This strict control system ensured that no plot of fertile land would lie fallow during the spring. Control over the distribution of imported goods was also under the jurisdiction of the central city administration. All shipments of copper, shells, and precious stones arriving at the ports were sent to secure central warehouses. From there, resources were distributed in batches to the artisan quarters according to approved production plans for specific goods. Finished standardized products were returned to the warehouses for subsequent exchange or use in internal construction projects. Special squads of overseers ensured order on crowded streets and in market squares. They monitored the cleanliness of the roads, the proper functioning of drainage channels, and the correct disposal of household waste outside the city walls. Any disputes among residents regarding property boundaries or the exchange of goods were resolved by authorized judges in the central square. Uniform rules of conduct were mandatory for all citizens, regardless of their status or profession. Communication in such a vast city required a reliable system for transmitting urgent messages. Special messengers were used for this purpose, moving swiftly along the wide, straight streets between different districts. Signal posts were installed atop the highest earthen platforms, transmitting commands using semaphore signals and smoke. This communication network allowed the leadership to react instantly to any change in the situation, whether it was the arrival of a fleet or a dam breach. The food distribution system during the winter demonstrated the highest level of social organization in society. Daily rations of corn and dried fish were distributed from central warehouses, strictly according to the number of members in each family. Strict record keepers monitored compliance with distribution standards, cross-checking data against special clay tablets with markings. This mechanism ensured the survival of all townspeople even during the harshest and longest winter months. This entire complex bureaucratic apparatus functioned without the use of conventional alphabetic writing. Instead, a sophisticated system of symbols, notches, and verbal instructions passed down through a chain of officials was employed. Did you know about such a strict division of daily responsibilities in such ancient societies without writing? In the next chapter, you'll learn how architects planned and laid out perfectly straight streets for a huge number of city dwellers. The foundation of the metropolis's urban plan was a colossal central square, as smooth as the surface of a calm lake. Engineers spent years leveling all natural unevenness in the terrain and filling in depressions with dense clay. This gigantic open space was designed to accommodate tens of thousands of people during important public gatherings. The surface of the square was covered with a thick layer of white sand, creating a striking contrast with the green slopes of the surrounding earthen platforms. Wide, perfectly straight thoroughfares radiated out in all directions from this main square. These avenues were laid out strictly along the cardinal directions, requiring the highest precision in astronomical and geometric calculations. The width of the main streets allowed two large groups of people carrying heavy logs or baskets of soil to pass each other freely. The road shoulders were reinforced with wooden logs driven into the ground, preventing the soil from eroding and maintaining the even boundaries of the roadway. Secondary streets crossed the main avenues at right angles, creating a regular grid of identical rectangular blocks. This strict geometry greatly facilitated navigation in the vast city and made it easy to control the movement of large flows of people. Narrow pedestrian paths were laid out within each block, providing access to every individual residential building. Such a level of standardization in urban development was absolutely unprecedented for settlements of that historical period. To prevent the flat streets from flooding during heavy rains, the architects created a well-designed storm drainage system. Deep trenches were dug along all the main roads, their walls carefully lined with dense, cohesive clay. These drainage channels collected water from the surface of the avenues and directed it toward a large stream outside the city walls. To cross these trenches at intersections, sturdy walkways made of thick, hewn planks were installed. The construction of the thoroughfares required large-scale earthworks to level out long stretches of the route. Where the road crossed a natural depression, engineers built wide earthen embankments, carefully compacting each layer of soil. In areas with small elevations, workers cut deep corridors to maintain a perfectly straight profile for the transport route. This colossal labor investment was justified by a significant acceleration of internal logistics and the movement of construction materials. An important part of the street infrastructure consisted of spacious plazas located at the intersections of major thoroughfares. Here, reed shelters were erected, beneath which goods exchange points and rest areas for work crews were situated. These mini plazas served as centers of social activity for each specific neighborhood, relieving congestion in the city's central square. The presence of such open areas also reduced building density and prevented the rapid spread of residential fires. The main roads leading to the river ports were wider and had a more durable, multi-layered surface made of crushed stone. It was along these roads that the heaviest cargo was transported daily: giant logs, blocks of stone, and sacks of shells. The pavement was regularly renewed by special repair crews, who filled potholes with fresh gravel and carefully compacted it. Keeping the port avenues in perfect condition was critical to maintaining the uninterrupted economic rhythm of the entire metropolis. The orientation of the streets according to the cardinal directions had not only practical, but also significant architectural and symbolic meaning. During the equinoxes, the sun rose exactly along the axis of the main eastern thoroughfare, illuminating the central square with even light. This visual effect was calculated in advance by the chief architects during the initial layout of the territory using long wooden poles. The city's layout thus became a gigantic, precisely calibrated astronomical instrument. Maintaining cleanliness in these vast spaces required the daily work of hundreds of specially assigned cleaners. They swept up trash and fallen leaves with stiff brooms made of branches, collecting the waste in large woven baskets for disposal. Strict rules prohibited the storage of building materials or personal belongings on the roadway so as not to obstruct traffic. The perfect order on the streets underscored the high level of discipline and phenomenal organization of this ancient society. A standard residential house in the metropolis was a sturdy and functional rectangular structure with a solid wooden frame. Construction began with digging deep trenches around the perimeter of the future building, into which thick cedar support posts were erected vertically. The spaces between the main posts were filled with thin poles, which were tightly interwoven with flexible willow branches and strong plant fibers. This elastic mesh structure gave the walls incredible resistance to the strong gusts of wind, characteristic of open plains. After the frame was constructed, the outer and inner surfaces of the walls were covered with a thick layer of a special plaster mixture. The mixture was made from local clay, river sand, and chopped dry grass, which served as a reinforcing material. Workers manually rubbed this viscous mixture into the wattle and daub walls, creating a smooth, even, and completely windproof surface. After drying completely in the sun, the clay plaster became as hard as stone, providing excellent thermal insulation for the interior. The house's gable roof rested on a massive central beam, which was supported by the two thickest support posts. The roof frame consisted of tightly laid wooden rafters, over which mats of tightly woven reeds were secured. The final step was laying a thick layer of long river grass, which was laid overlapping from bottom to top to drain water. This design reliably protected the inhabitants from the heaviest autumn downpours and retained heat from the hearth in winter. In the center of the earthen floor, which had been carefully compacted beforehand into a solid mass, there was a small open hearth. It consisted of a shallow circular depression, neatly lined along the edges, with smooth river stones to prevent the spread of fire. Smoke escaped through a special opening in the roof ridge, which could be adjusted depending on the wind direction. The hearth served not only for cooking daily meals, but was also the main source of light and heat in the house. The interior of the house had no fixed partitions, but was visually divided into functional zones using hanging mats. Wide wooden platforms lined the walls, covered with soft animal skins and woven blankets for a comfortable night's sleep. Personal belongings, tools, and small food supplies were stored beneath the platforms in airtight ceramic vessels. The well-thought-out, minimalist layout allowed for effortless maintenance of perfect cleanliness and order within the space. To protect against the winter cold, residents used additional layers of insulation, attaching thick woven rugs to the interior walls. During the harshest frosts, doorways were tightly sealed with double curtains of animal skins, minimizing the loss of precious heat. In the summer, these mats were removed, allowing for cross-ventilation and keeping the interior pleasantly cool within the clay walls. The adaptability of the design made these homes an ideal shelter in the harsh continental climate of North America. The yard area around each house was carefully planned for the family's daily household activities. Here were small sheds for storing firewood, wooden mortars for grinding corn, and workstations for repairing tools. The plots were separated from one another by light wicker fences that did not obstruct the view, but clearly marked the boundaries of the territory. Keeping the yard in perfect order was a mandatory requirement for all residents of this strictly organized metropolis. Building a new house was a collective process in which all the neighbors in the block participated. The men were responsible for preparing and installing the heavy logs of the frame, a task requiring considerable physical strength and coordinated effort. Women were responsible for preparing the clay mortar, plastering the walls, and the intricate weaving of reed mats for the roof. Such mutual assistance significantly accelerated the process of building homes and strengthened social bonds within the urban community. Repairs and maintenance of the houses were carried out regularly Before the onset of the heavy rainy season and winter snowfalls, residents renewed the layer of clay plaster on the facades, filling in any cracks that had appeared, and replaced damaged sections of the thatched roof. Wooden elements in contact with the ground were treated with special resins to prevent rot and the decay of the supports. This careful maintenance allowed the wooden clay houses to serve several generations of a single family. The need to accurately determine the planting time for crops required engineers to create a reliable astronomical instrument. On a large open site in the western part of the city, a colossal circle of massive wooden posts was erected. The structure formed a perfect circle with a diameter of over 100 meters, inside which a central observation point was located. This monumental instrument made it possible to record the exact position of the sun on the horizon throughout the entire annual cycle. Only the straightest and strongest trunks of red cedar, a rot-resistant wood, were selected for the construction of this calendar. Each of the dozens of posts was of identical height and diameter, reflecting the highest standards of material consistency. The logs were dug into the ground to a considerable depth to ensure the structure's absolute immobility even during strong gusts of hurricane-force winds. The process of marking and installing the pillars required exquisite geometric precision, as the slightest error would have distorted all astronomical calculations. A key element of the calendar's function was the recording of the summer and winter solstices, as well as the spring and autumn equinoxes. An observer would stand by the central pole and, at dawn, record the point where the sun's disk appeared relative to the outer circle of logs. The alignment of the rising sun with specific markers signaled the onset of major climatic changes and the start of the planting season. This data was immediately relayed to administrators to begin coordinating the movement of thousands of workers to the agricultural fields. The wooden circle also served as a tool for complex forecasting of river floods, on which the city's well-being depended. By correlating solar cycles with long-term observations of water levels, experts could predict the timing of spring floods. This information allowed for the timely clearing of drainage channels and the reinforcement of earthen dams around the most vulnerable residential neighborhoods. The accuracy of these forecasts was a matter of survival for the vast population concentrated in the lowlands of the river valley. As the city expanded and the need for precise calculations grew, engineers periodically rebuilt the wooden calendar. Old posts were pulled from the ground, and new, more massive logs were installed in their place, with the radius adjusted. Each new version of the circle was larger than the previous one, which allowed for greater distances between markers and improved the accuracy of visual observations. These large-scale reconstructions confirmed the exceptional importance of astronomical research for the normal functioning of the entire economy of the metropolis. Beyond its purely utilitarian function, the wooden complex played a key role in the social and cultural organization of society. The dates determined by the pillars became days for mass public gatherings and the distribution of new resources. Thousands of people gathered around the circle to synchronize their work rhythm with the unified rhythm of the vast settlement. Centralized control over time was one of the most powerful tools for maintaining discipline and order in the state. Training new observers took many years and required phenomenal visual memory and mathematical abilities. Day after day, the apprentices stood by the central pillar, memorizing the slightest shifts in the shadows on the sand throughout the different seasons. Knowledge of the circle's operating principles was not recorded, but was transmitted exclusively through practical training and oral instructions from mentors. This closed training system ensured that control of the calendar remained in the hands of a small group of highly qualified specialists. The accuracy of the ancient astronomers' calculations was so high that deviations amounted to only fractions of a degree over distances of 100 meters. The use of nothing more than simple poles and stretch ropes to construct a perfect circle on such a scale is an outstanding engineering achievement. The geometry of the wooden calendar had a direct influence on the city's overall layout, setting standards for the orientation of the main avenues. The architecture of the metropolis and astronomy merged, creating a complex mechanism for human adaptation to the harsh forces of nature. After centuries of stable prosperity, the population of the gigantic metropolis reached its historical peak, numbering in the tens of thousands. This incredible concentration of people in a limited area began to exert enormous pressure on the surrounding natural environment. The dense forests surrounding the city were completely cleared to meet the needs of construction, home repairs, and daily heating. Expeditions had to venture farther and farther afield for timber, which critically complicated logistics and required additional labor. Large-scale deforestation along the riverbanks disrupted the natural balance of the soil and led to a sharp increase in erosion. Without the anchoring roots of trees, the soil was easily washed away during rains, silting up and blocking the city's vital drainage channels. Deprived of its forest barrier, the river began to overflow its banks more frequently, flooding farmland and destroying low-lying residential neighborhoods. Engineers had to spend enormous resources on the constant construction of new protective dams, diverting workers from food production. During this same period, large-scale global climate changes began, bringing prolonged and severe cold spells to the region. Winters became longer and colder, requiring a sharp increase in fuel reserves to keep homes warm. Spring frosts struck unpredictably, destroying young corn and bean shoots, which threatened the entire food security system. The carefully calibrated calculations of the wooden calendar no longer matched nature's actual behavior, throwing the planting process into chaos. Frequent crop failures quickly led to a catastrophic depletion of stocks in the central city granaries and a reduction in daily rations. The situation was exacerbated by the fact that vast numbers of people could no longer feed themselves through hunting and gathering in the deforested areas. The centralized resource distribution system began to break down, as there was nothing left to trade for imported goods. The disruption of trade links deprived artisans of copper and high-quality stone, bringing entire industrial districts to a standstill. Faced with the impossibility of ensuring survival in the overpopulated city, groups of residents began to gradually leave their homes. They departed in small communities, moving along rivers in search of new, unspoiled lands with accessible forest resources. This process stretched on for decades, transforming once bustling neighborhoods into rows of crumbling wooden structures standing empty. The city administration no longer had enough workers to maintain the infrastructure of the massive earthen platforms and streets. The complex system of artificial canals quickly became overgrown with weeds, and the smooth surfaces of the central squares were covered with tall wild grass. Without regular renewal of their clay plaster, the wooden defensive walls began to rot and collapse under the influence of moisture and wind. The colossal mounds, deprived of daily maintenance, fell victim to rain erosion, which slowly eroded their strict step geometry. The remaining inhabitants could not stop this process of degradation, as their primary efforts were consumed by the simple search for sustenance. The metropolis's decline occurred gradually, without destructive external influences or sudden cataclysms. The system's resources had simply been exhausted. The ingenious engineering solutions that had made this city possible proved powerless against large-scale climatic shifts and environmental stress. The architectural colossus slowly dissolved into the landscape, giving way to the returning forest and encroaching river marshes. The abandoned houses vanished beneath a layer of humus, leaving only majestic hills on the surface, like silent monuments to engineering might. The history of this city serves as a vivid example of how closely the prosperity of civilization is linked to the fragile balance of the environment. The ancient builders achieved the impossible, creating an ideal space for tens of thousands of people in the harsh conditions of the continent. But their success led to their own downfall when the scale of consumption exceeded the regenerative capacity of the local environment. Huge earthen platforms covered by forest waited for hundreds of years for the moment when their secrets would be rediscovered by researchers. We see that this ancient civilization possessed outstanding knowledge in engineering, urban planning, and the organization of a complex society. The monumental earthen structures and well-planned neighborhoods attest to the highest level of craftsmanship among the people who lived on the banks of the Great River. In your opinion, which of the engineering solutions used by the ancient builders of Cahokia was the most impressive and challenging to implement? Share your thoughts in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new fascinating historical videos.